Croeso i Sgwrsiau ar Arweinyddiaeth a gyflwynir gan Academi Wales. Ar ein podlediad rydym ni'n gwahodd gwesteion i siarad am eu taith a arweinyddol ac yn myfyrio am rai o'r ysbrydoliaethau a'r gwersi maen nhw wedi dysgu ar hyd y ffordd. Welcome to Conversations on Leadership hosted by Academi Wales. On our podcast, we invite guests to talk about their leadership journey and reflect on some of the inspirations and lessons we've learnt along the way.
Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Molly Dacey, and for this episode, I'd like to welcome Shereen Williams. Shereen Williams, MBE, is the Chief Executive Officer and Secretary of the Local Democracy and Boundary Commission for Wales. Prior to this, she worked in local government for nearly a decade across Newport and Monmouthshire local authorities, and over the past 16 years, she's volunteered in numerous roles in the third sector, as well as for statutory bodies. She's also a trustee of St John's Ambulance Cymru and the Institute of Welsh Affairs. In her free time, she sits as a magistrate on the Gwent bench and is a governor for 2 Welsh medium primary schools in Newport. I'm amazed and very grateful that you were able to find the time to fit us in, because I imagine you're very, very busy. So thank you for joining us. To begin, if it's okay with you, I'd love to ask you some quick fire questions just so that our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. So what was the last book that you read?
Oh, the last book is Crying in H Mart. It's a story, it's actually an autobiography about a woman who's dealing with the loss of her mother, and she's half South Korean, so it's the story of how H Mart is like a little convenience store.
Wow.
And when she walked into that shop, how she found little things that reminded her of her mum, and how growing up she didn't really have the best relationship, and now she misses her mum greatly now that she's gone. It's a really hard read for me, especially because I'm so far away from home, which is in Singapore. I mean, my mum, is alive and is healthy, but I read it thinking that is going to be my reality as I get older. Yeah, and how to live with that. So that's what I've just read. It is. It's the title didn't seem, it didn't seem particularly interesting. I was like, what's this? And I read the excerpt about it at the back, and I thought, oh God, this feels very close to me.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What is the last thing that you learnt?
The last thing that I learnt? Yeah. The last thing that I learnt today, well, not because obviously today's recording is taking place at the Academi Wales Winter School. Yeah. And the last thing I learnt today was during the last session about how small things can make a difference. Yeah. And it's given me some food for thought about what I've got to do when I go back. It's not the big changes, it's the small, intricate changes and how that can make a difference.
Yeah, that actually feeds in very well to the questions I'm going to ask. What do you think is your biggest strength?
I actually think my biggest strength is my resilience.
Yeah.
I moved from Singapore to Wales in 2005. After I met my husband on my travels, got married, moved here. I had to start from scratch. I had to make friends, figure out where things were. Mm-hmm. When I was back in Singapore, I knew which buses went where, I knew where the bus stop was, I knew where to get things.
Yeah.
And I'd gone from that to having to start from scratch with everything. And I was only, I want to say 22. I just turned 22. And that was hard for me. I mean, language was an issue because it wasn't an issue at all, but that was the least of my problems. It was things like, how do I start living my life as an adult? I'd gotten married, I'd become a stepmom. There was just a lot going on. So, and now I reflect on it. I think I have a really fulfilling life.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was, resilience, I think for me is my greatest strength.
Oh, absolutely. What motivates you?
What motivates me is wanting to make the world a better place. I know it sounds very cliche and Miss Universe / Miss World there, but growing up, my mum has always emphasized on the importance of giving back. I'm Muslim by faith, and part of my faith, is a requirement that I do better. Mm-hmm. It's time in this world for me is, I see it in a very temporary time, and you've got to make full use of it. And my mum's always emphasized the importance of giving back and doing good and helping others, because she said, the more you give out, the more you get back.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what motivates me. The more I give out, I think I've gained so much from volunteering and getting involved in different initiatives. I make new friends, I make new connections, and you get to make a difference in other people's lives.
Yeah. I feel like that's something that should be like at the core of everyone, really. It should motivate us all. Last one of these is, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would like to attempt to be a chef.
Oh, really?
I'm a half decent home cook. At Southeast Asian food, I'm pretty decent with like cooking Malay food. Sometimes I think, oh, you know what, I could do this, or I pretend when I'm cooking sometimes. And when I'm cooking for like lots of people, I'm thinking, oh, maybe could I do this for a living? And then I realised how much I hate cleaning up and prep work. And I realised, no, but I would I watch some of these like cooking shows and think, I could do that.
Yeah, it
shake the wok around.
Yeah, it? Yeah, all like the fire and the business.
And I come from a family of, my grandfather had a restaurant. My aunts, I've got an aunt and an uncle who have their own catering company. So we've always worked in these situations. Growing up, you'd be expected to help out when we're catering weddings, etc. And Southeast Asian weddings, like Singaporean Malay weddings, it's not 200-300 people. We're talking about 5,000 people in a day. Yeah. So all of us growing up, we'd help out. We'd be part of the crew, basically clean-up crew, chopping crew, whatever. So it's not unknown. One of my younger brothers is a chef. So I think it's in the family, it's in the blood. But I don't know. I'll enjoy it for the moment when I'm stirring things and mixing flavours, and then after that I think, oh, I've got so much to wash up.
I don't blame you on that.
I changed my mind then.
Thank you for answering those. It's really interesting just to get to know a little bit about you personally. I do have a couple more, but I'll come back to them at the end. In Wales, on the 1st of March, we celebrate St David's Day, whose famous last words were "Gwnewch y pethau bychain," which translates to "do the little things." So with that in mind, our theme today is everyday leadership. So to begin our conversation, I just wanted to ask if you could share with us, what are the little things that you do day to day that you feel have a big impact on you personally or your team or your organisation?
Well, that's a very simple one. If you ask my colleagues what I do on a regular basis, like little things, is that I feed them. My love language is food.
Yeah.
And that is my family's love language as well. That's how I show how I care. And one of the things that I actually regularly do for my team is I get treats in, where it's donuts or cakes or some, little things like that. Because for me, it's a way of me saying thank you to them for trusting my leadership in the organisation. It's about me telling them I actually care about their well-being. So that's one of the things that I do. I also make a point of getting to know my colleagues, what's going on in their lives, and checking in on them, because these things matter. I think if there's lots going on in your personal life, it's hard for you to perform at work sometimes.
Absolutely.
And it's important for me as the leader in my organisation to make sure I'm aware if my team's going through difficulty, what can I do to support them? Is it a case of lowering my expectations for a period of time, saying, actually, don't worry about this right now, focus on what you need to do at home. If you've got caring responsibilities, if there's been a death in the family, what can I do to make things easier for you?
Yeah.
So for me, that's what I think are the little things that I do for my team that makes things better for them and for me as well as a leader.
Yeah. I was going to ask kind of if these little things that you do was something that you learned or something that was kind of through your own experience. But I guess with the food, you've already gone into all the detail about that. It's often said that living your values at work isn't just hanging a poster on the wall. But since we've all had to work virtually, where there literally isn't even walls to put posters on, what do you do to keep your organisational values visible?
So for me, it's about trust, integrity. I operate in a high trust environment, and I'm very clear with that to my team. I said, look, I don't expect you to be logging on every single minute of your work hour. And I tell them, look, sometimes you'll get emails at me at stupid o'clock, especially during the COVID period, where everybody was juggling all sorts. I was juggling trying to support my kids in their education at home. My husband was working shifts on the COVID response, and it was just chaos. So I had to find a system that worked for my household, and that meant waking up at stupid o'clock in the morning, responding to emails then, and then focusing on the kids, having a bit of a rest time, and then continuing in the afternoon, sorting out dinner, and then doing a bit more at night.
Yeah.
That was what I had to do. And I was upfront with my colleagues. I think, in our team meetings, look, this is what I'm doing and this works for me. Mm-hmm. Please don't feel like stressed out when you get an email that appears, when you log on in the morning, there's an email that's come through at about 4 o'clock in the morning. I said, that's how I'm working right now.
Yeah.
You need to work in a way that works for you.
Yeah.
So for me, I operate high trust. I'm when there's been challenges in my personal life, I've told my team and said, this is what I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
So just be aware, I might not be available, like I usually am, or I need some time out to do certain things.
Yeah.
So for me, that's how I show my organisation. It's high, transparency, high trust, and honesty, really.
Yeah. And it sounds like from kind of everything you were just saying that you're obviously very good at kind of setting your expectations and then working around that rather than it being so strict and everything needs to be done this way, that way, or whatever. It seems like it's a great place to work, to be honest.
Well, we might be recruiting in the future, so keep an eye out.
Keep my name in mind. Just going back to reading your bio earlier, it shows that you're obviously a very, very busy person. So what does work-life balance feel for you? And you kind of touched on it during COVID, but do you think there's been a switch pre-COVID, during COVID, and now post-COVID for your work-life balance?
Definitely. I think pre-COVID, I'd say yes to everything. Any offers of new experiences, I'd always say yes. But over COVID, I've realised that actually, family time is really important for me. Time for me is really important as well.
Yeah.
And I think I'm also at a point in my career now where I have the capacity of social banking to actually be able to say no to things.
Yeah.
And I've used that a bit more now than I have in the past. In the past, I'd feel I'd feel bad if I had to let somebody down or offend them. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll try and I'll find a way around things to fit it in. But now I actually say, I've used no a bit more regularly now. And I think it surprised some people that I've had to say no to them. I will never say no to Academy Wales, don't worry. I actually enjoy this. And I actually now do things that I enjoy. So all the things that I'm involved with in a voluntary capacity are things that I have an interest in outside of work.
Yeah.
And I've also started to utilise my time more in areas that interest my children. So I volunteer. I'm a member of the committee in their minis and juniors rugby team because my kids spend so much time at the club. I thought, let me do something which there's a direct benefit to them.
Yeah.
So so when they're training, I could be at a committee meeting or doing something in the clubhouse. So for me, that's what my work-life balance looks like.
Yeah. And I think it's changed for a lot of people, obviously, during COVID, but quite positively. I think when everyone thinks about the whole lockdown, that it was always really negative. But I think the way that people had to adjust, quite a lot of positive has come from it, especially like work-life balance. Just lastly on these set of questions, what advice do you have for future leaders who are looking for small day-to-day actions that will help them further their careers?
I want to say, be brave, take some risks. I'm not sure if you consider that as a small, that might be a big thing rather than a small thing. Don't be afraid to go into the unknown and try new things because you don't know how they'll work out. I always joke saying that, my journey into leadership is sometimes is a bit accidental because I applied for my leadership role because I was trying to prep for interviews due to a restructure in my old job.
Yeah.
And then I got offered the job and then I had to make a really difficult decision. Do I take it or do I not? And I went for it knowing nothing about boundaries.
Yeah.
I knew governance, I knew finance, but boundaries, I thought I'm going to have to learn from scratch. And I think my willingness to tell my team when I first started, look, and being honest with them was quite hard, saying, I don't know this area of work. I'm going to ask very stupid questions.
Yeah.
And you're going to think, how in the world did she get the job? But I told them, I said, I know local authorities, I know elected members, I know governance and diplomacy. That's what I come with.
Yeah.
So for me, that was, I would say, take risks.
Yeah.
Small ones, big ones, try
Whatever ones
it.
you
Try
can.
whatever ones you can. Try it. That would be my advice. The unknown can be incredibly interesting.
Yeah. That's brilliant advice. I'm definitely going to take that. Thank you so much for all the stories and advice. But just before we end, I have a couple more quick fire questions, if that's okay.
There we are.
Do you or have you ever played a musical instrument?
No.
Never?
No, I only I used to sing in a band, but that was it. I didn't.
Really?
I did not play. I didn't play my musical instrument.
What is your favourite type of food?
Oh, Malay, Southeast Asian food is my favourite type of food. But my favourite food is a fruit called durian. It's you either love it or you hate it. My husband has said it smells like a dead body.
I had it when I was in Thailand, and it's not for me at all.
I tell him that's in my idea of what heaven smells like.
That's so interesting.
That is my absolute favourite food in the world. I could eat durian every single day. Whenever I go back to Singapore, when I arrive at home, my father will have a box of durian already, taken out of its shell in a styrofoam container in the fridge, waiting for me. And that's how I know I'm my father's favourite child.
So it's one of my favourite questions to ask. What's your favourite noise?
My favourite noise is actually the sound of my children laughing with each other, because they're at a stage where they're bickering on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I'm at home and there's those rare moments that they get along and I can hear them laughing,
Yeah.
I think, wow, that's such
a lovely answer. Are you more of a morning person or a night owl?
Pre-children, night owl for sure.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember one of my aunts telling me, because when we used to visit Singapore, my husband and I would actually have a nice long line and wake up quite late. And she's like, wow, you two are really suited to each other. And she says, you're going to be in trouble when you have kids. And then I had kids and my ability to have lie-ins has just disappeared. And now even when I don't need to wake up early, I still wake up at ridiculous o'clock. So I have no choice now.
Just lastly then, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, that's a interesting
It's a good one to end on. People think a lot about this one.
What would it be? I think it would be, you don't want to say, heal the sick and solve all the world's ailments. That sounds very. I would like to be able to see into people's minds to find out what they really think.
Okay.
Really fascinating. I sit as a magistrate, and sometimes I wonder, what are you really thinking?
Yeah.
Can I see that you really do it?
Oh,
That you're not doing it?
Yeah. It would be easier, wouldn't it?
Or like sometimes somebody comes to the court with a really ridiculous thing that they've done, and I just want to know why. Why'd you do it? So yes, being able to read somebody's mind, I think that would be
very handy.
Yeah, very handy.
Thank you so much for joining us again. I've really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Mae ein podlediad sgyrsiau ar arweinyddiaeth ar gael trwy ein gwefan ac mae'r recordiad yma yn hawlfraint i Lywodraeth Cymru. Our Conversations on Leadership podcast is available through our website. This recording is copyright of Welsh Government.